You're listening to Crystal and Emily on Love Your Shelf, the best librarian podcast in the extensive and highly competitive field of librarian podcasts. Hello.
Hi.
You're listening to Love Your Shelf. It's a podcast about books and movies and shows, and we're back.
We're back.
Once again, we say that a lot because we take a lot of time off.
We're just dramatic. We love to make a grand entrance as often as we can.
Leave them wanting more.
That's right.
But we're getting back on track, so you can expect to hear from us.
That's right.
On a more routine basis. So I've got, a lot. I'm not going to try to cover everything that I've read in the last however long it's been since we've done this. But I've got a few.
Yes.
And so I'm going to talk about some books that I liked, some a little bit better than others, and then we're going to talk about movies. Specifically, we're going to talk about Kanopy with a K, which is our library's new streaming service, new to us streaming service.
Yes.
And they have a ton of movies. There's a little big selection there. And it's a lot of things that you can't get on other streaming services. So we're going to talk about that and how amazing it is that Nacogdoches Public Library folks can watch those films and shows for free.
And spread the word. You get insider information if you listen to this podcast. Like info on Kanopy with a K.
I feel like I always have to say that because, first of all, why?
I know.
I don't like that as an advertising thing.
I'm with you.
I've seen it where, they'll change something that's like multiple letters in a phrase. None of them have this new letter, like classy cuts with two Ks.
Why? Just call it classy cuts with two Cs.
Right. Everybody knows what that means.
Yes.
If somebody can explain that to us, please get with us and tell us why this needs to happen.
Why do I associate that with the 90s or the early 2000s? I don't know, for some reason.
Or even earlier, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. But I'm with you, though.
I'll
still stop and look if it's spelled correctly.
Yes. In fact, I'll give you a kudos.
I'll be
with a K.
Maybe.
Not with a C, which would be weird.
Yeah, no. That makes no sense at all. Anyway,
yes. Back to the books, which is why everyone's here. So the first one I want to talk about is called The Plot by Jean Hanff Korelitz. It was a Goodreads nominee for Best Mystery Thriller a few years ago. And it's good. It reminds me, the plot of the plot reminds me a little bit of Yellowface by R.F. Kuang.
Okay.
But it's a little overwritten, a little verbose. It's driven by the plot, as it were. But it could use a little editing, which is ironic since the whole book is about a writer or writers. The main character, Jacob, had written a novel and then became a professor. And after his first book, he never produced anything. So he's kind of in this not great university MFA program that he's teaching, and he's a real sad sack character. But he has this student, Evan, who is a massive jerk. Just, arrogant, thinks he knows everything. Yes. Just on everything. And so he announces in this seminar that he's got the perfect plot for a story. The student announces, Evan, the student. And he's got the perfect plot, and it's going to, make him famous. It's the best plot ever created. So, of course, the professor, thinks, oh, what a tool.
Sit down, Evan.
Just the worst. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everybody thinks that, Evan. And so he's kind of, the professor, Jacob, is still kind of spiraling, and he's like waiting for, is the student going to come out with this
remarkable plot?
Well, guess what happens to Evan?
Dead.
He's dead.
Oh.
And so, unfortunately, or fortunately, he told the plot to
one person.
And so you can guess what's going to happen. He's, so Jacob tries to, redeem himself by doing this. And so, I think if that grabs you, then you're gonna, want to read to the end of this.
Nice.
Of course, there's some blackmail involved in there.
Classic.
Yeah. And so there's a whole, huge drama around this, but basically it's the story of, is a plot something that someone can own? Because a plot is kind of the barest bones, just the foundation of a story, right?
Yeah. There are no original ideas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that, I think, made me the most uncomfortable through reading the book.
Yeah.
Is because they don't tell you.
I was going to ask.
It doesn't tell you what the plot is right away.
Which, all right.
Yes. So the whole time I'm like,
better be good.
It better be a good plot. And it's pretty good.
Okay.
But like you said, there's no new plots necessarily.
Yeah.
And so
somebody's thought of that plot before.
Yeah. I just felt like it was a big trying to, go throw it out there, go hard, and maybe
there were still some plot holes or just holes in
yeah. So it's a worthwhile read.
Yeah.
It made me read to the end. I wanted to finish it and find out what happened. But upon further reflection, I thought, well,
right,
it wasn't that enjoyable just because of that tension of, oh, I bet this is not going to be good, or I bet
couldn't shake it.
I don't like that. I like to be swept up and carried along with the story and not kind of second guessing.
Yes.
So
yes,
that's what I say about that.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Then I read a new collection of stories by Kate Atkinson, who has written some of my favorite books recently, like Life After Life, and it's called Normal Rules Don't Apply. It's a selection of 11 stories. Story collections don't do all that well for whatever reason. I like them. I think that it's nice to have like a little bite-sized story. You can put it down, you can pick it back up later, and you especially if you're like I am and reading a lot of things at the same time, and you're trying to keep all the plots, all straight in your head. So short story collection is nice, and it takes, I think, a real skill to make something that's on just a few pages long, and really to get the characters and everything across, effectively. But she definitely does that. It's really unusual, and it's kind of about all of the ways that things are connected. And how chance functions and that kind of thing.
Had she put out any a collection of short stories before?
Not that I'm aware of.
Nice.
In fact, her novels are usually really long.
Nice.
So
she's like, I'm going to challenge myself.
You're right. Yeah, do something completely different. But it's definitely I like anything that she writes for the most part, and so. That the quality of the writing is there, plus it's unique, plus the stories are interconnected, so it's not just random stories, so they kind of are all a part of a universe that starts to take shape as you're reading the stories.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. Then I read Venomous Lumpsucker.
What?
by Ned Baumann. The Venomous Lumpsucker it's very hard to say that. I want to add more letters in there.
It's the M's, like the Venomous
so.
Lumpsucker. Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like it'd be like a theater warm-up.
Exactly. And so it's, the Venomous Lumpsucker is a fish. And the book takes place in the near future, where all of the species are going extinct. So it's very dark, but it's also funny. It's comedic in a way, but it's about kind of how capitalism is just run away and has kind of destroyed everything, and these species that are dying off, they have like a new technology that takes the DNA from these species and saves it, or like saves like one example of the species and says, oh, see, we're saving them, But as the story goes along, you realize it's much more nefarious than that.
Yeah, there's something sinister.
Exactly. And so there is one of the main character, I would say, Karen, is in charge of like keeping track of the venomous lumpsucker species, which is like this bottom feeder kind of gross
Sounds
fish.
cute.
Yes, exactly. But it's also the most intelligent fish on the planet.
Is that true?
I don't know. It is in this book. I didn't go and do any research.
I'm so curious. Yeah. I'm shocked some kid hasn't come up to me and been like, do you have any books on the venomous lumpsucker? And I'm like, what? I'm shocked at what kids know and say.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They are always, especially about animals and things like that.
Yes. Anyway.
But, yeah. So Karen is an animal cognition scientist. And, of course, she's distraught by all of these things that are happening, so that's why she does this job. But then she finds herself like pitted against all these other actors, bad actors that are involved in this. A conspiracy, I guess is the word. So it's in the near future, set in the near future too. So that's another part of that it's dark, is that this is all happening in our lifetimes, according to fictionally, of course, but hopefully
buckle up, guys.
This is all happening right now. Not saying that. So yeah, it's really, the story itself is really unique.
Yeah.
The characters are bizarre and funny, and it's really unexpected.
Cool.
Then I read What Feasts at Night by Kingfisher, which is a sequel to What Moves the Dead, that I've talked about previously. And it's based on Edgar Allan Poe's Fall of the House of Usher. And so the main character is this retired soldier, Alex. And Alex had, in the previous novel, had gone to Usher Manor and, witnesses all of the weirdness there. If you've ever read Fall of the House of Usher, the two siblings,
all
and
of the weirdness there.
Yeah. And so this is the follow-up to that, where Alex is still at this manor, but then now there's a new not mystery, but there's a new thing that he has to, that they have to resolve. Okay. It's hard to explain without really getting into it.
Okay, cool.
But it's like very short. It's very brief. Both of the novels are very short. And it's kind of about these soldiers that have come back from war. They've got PTSD, which they don't know, or they don't have that name for it, obviously. Right. But it's the same symptoms, and so they find it difficult to navigate life. But then they have to go up against like these superstitions that the local people have, and but they do find out that there is something going on. So there's like this superstition, but then like so often in fiction, they realize that there is truth to it.
Sure.
And so it's a dark mystery, but there's humor to it, which is nice.
Yeah.
But definitely that it's creepy and carries out that kind of Edgar Allan Poe feeling.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. And carrying on with the creepy factor, I read Home Before Dark by Riley Sager.
Yes, I've been wanting to read this one.
Yes. So this one reminds me, if you haven't, and a lot of people didn't see this show, but it's on Stars, called Shining Vale.
Oh, no.
With Courtney Cox. And she plays a writer in the show. She plays a writer who has, writer's block, and she writes steamy romance novels. And so her husband buys this big new house, like an old Victorian mansion, so that she has a place to write. And then, shenanigans ensue from there.
Creepy shenanigans?
Creepy shenanigans, yes.
Classic.
So it's haunted, basically. And she writes in the attic, and the attic is haunted.
The creepiest place in the building,
yeah, of course.
Except the basement, for sure. Yeah.
Yes. And so it's a very silly show, but I had just seen it when I read this book, and so made the connection about the two. But in Home Before Dark, the main character is a young woman whose parents moved her into this huge Victorian mansion, and they were warned against moving there. But and the story is told in like multiple jumps between the time periods, and so, which I always like, because that helps to kind of create the suspense in a more natural way than just not telling you the scary part.
Yes, there are ways. Yeah, there are ways to do that.
Yes. And so Maggie is the main character, and you discover that the family only lived there for 3 weeks, that it was so haunted that they left in the middle of the night and never went back. And she doesn't remember everything, but later in life, she has become a restorer of old homes. And so it gets left to her, the house. It turns out that even though they only lived there for 3 weeks, they didn't sell the house. Okay. The parents kept it. And so now her parents are gone and she's left with this house. And so, she starts to experience all of the weirdness. It is not just a story. And so there's, ghosties.
Ghosty things afoot.
Things going on. And she realizes that what her father wrote maybe
there was some truth to it. Yes,
because she assumed that essentially the story of this house, the father ends up writing a book about it called House of Horrors, and it becomes like as popular as the Amityville Horror.
Okay,
so, but that also kind of drove a wedge between her parents. It was this whole thing.
Him writing the book,
and then making all this money off of it, and so there's a lot of things to unpack that have gone on with this family
and the house,
and with the house, and the other people that have lived in the house, and so it's a lot going on.
Cool,
but it's definitely a horror novel.
Nice, but you liked it.
Yeah, it's not my favorite Riley Sager horror. Ghosts are not my favorite thing.
Yeah.
But I have definitely read a lot.
Because her last one, what was it? The lake one? Oh my gosh, we've had this conversation literally on the podcast and I forget.
Riley does sound like a girl's name.
I know. I
and it's also not a real name.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's just a nom de plume of another guy who doesn't he wrote I never know, we've talked about this before too, but I do have to mention that he wrote like a regular literary fiction novel that didn't do anything, didn't go anywhere. Then he starts writing these kind of, I wouldn't say cheap, but, genre forward, very genre heavy novels, and now is just writing them
down. Found his little,
Yeah. One after the other. Every few months there's another one out.
Man.
So, yeah.
What was the lake one? Wasn't that
yes?
Riley Sager?
There's the house across the lake.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that one took such a weird turn. I think we talked about it on here. Did not see the ghost aspect of that one.
Yes,
coming into play.
Yeah. It's very inventive.
Right. Yeah.
But
no, I rolled with it for sure.
Yeah. Then I read Look Closer by David Ellis. And everything I'm talking about today reminded me of something else, so I don't know why I'm making that connection.
Ooh.
But it reminded me of that series You, which is a book series and a TV series, and also a little bit like John Grisham for some reason. But basically it's about this couple who's well off in Chicago. They've been married for a while. They're not all that excited about their marriage or whatever. But the look closer part is like, okay, so here's this picture of this, seemingly normal couple, but look closer. And then you find out that they're not
normal.
Exactly. There is a $20 million trust fund involved.
Oh, cool.
There's an affair.
Classic.
Yeah. So it just it exactly very much fulfills its title in that it kind of zooms in and then zooms in, and each time reveals more. But it's not even like a zoom. It's more circular than that. It's very interestingly told, the narrative. So, the story the plot is not as unique, maybe, or seems like it, but then it's that whole,
look closer.
Yeah, that's right. Then I read Never Saw Me Coming by Vera Kurian, and this one was unique, and I've been reading a lot of stuff just like, oh, that looks like a good title, and then I'm looking at them a lot online, and so I don't look at the back of the book. I don't look at the blurbs. I'm just going, oh, here, title, I'll read that. And so this is not something I would normally read. Wear it like a suit.
Crystal loves books, you guys.
Yeah.
So much.
Just be quiet about that. Shh. I only wear the books when there's nobody in the world.
I was going to say that all your clothes are actually book pages. They look like regular clothes.
I wish I could just make
look
this
closer
sound.
and
That's what it sounds like when I walk around.
We know when she's coming.
They hear me coming. Okay, so this book is about this freshman in college, a girl named Chloe, and she's a beautiful girl, and so she's got all of these, all of the beautiful girl privilege,
Yes.
And she's starting her first year of college.
We know all about that.
Of course. Such a problem.
Sorry.
So she's starting college, but the unique part is that she is enrolled in this program through the psychology department because she's a psychopath.
Oh.
Yes. And there are, I think, 8 or 10 others that are also enrolled. They don't know who the others are. And then hijinks ensue.
And they're all psychopaths?
They're all psychopaths, but they're kind of being tracked by this psychology professor.
Interesting.
And they wear smart watches that remind them of when they need to go do their little testing or whatever, So they're identified, but only to the psychology department.
Interesting.
But somebody dies. And
dang it.
Yes. And so it's one of the students in the study.
Got it.
So the other students that are in the study got to figure out what's going on.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah. And so again, it's the voice of the character is a little bit off-putting because she's, a young girl who's never had it. She's fully privileged and never had any problems, and thinks that she can get by on her looks and that kind of thing.
It's you just said that, thought that.
Mm-hmm. But her character does grow some depth, not in small part because she's a psychopath, but she's plotting. You find out really early on that she's plotting to kill this boy that she knew in childhood.
Okay.
Or you knew she was younger.
Okay.
And so, that's another clue that she's got something wrong with her.
Right.
But we don't know, up front what happened or why, or, if this is just
Got it.
she's just doing this because, he dismissed her or something. You don't know what he did.
Okay.
But,
it could be anything.
yeah. So it's one of, a pretty small category of books where the pretty likable main character is a psychopath or a murderer.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's also kind of like you, or, where the person whose eyes that you're looking through just to view the story, the lens is of this monstrous person.
So, I watched maybe a few episodes, and I can't remember why I fell off, but I do remember being like, oh my gosh, obviously this guy is not likable.
Yeah.
He's crazy.
Yeah.
And do you eventually feel for him?
I think that's why it continues. I think that's why it there's more books and there's more episodes in the series. You
can't just.
Maybe that's showing my own psychopathy, but I do feel like you grow to kind of pull for him a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like I think that's great storytelling. I salute that.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Well, and two, it's funny in you, and also in Never Saw Me Coming, is that, this character who's deeply disturbed, there are people who are more disturbed.
Yeah.
And so then they kind of come up against, wow, I get to kill this person. They're even worse than me, and that's why I'm killing this person. Now, he definitely starts off, there's really not, it doesn't seem like there's much redemption for him. Because he is
just stalking
serial
a girl.
killer.
Yeah.
But it's later on, as he kind of progresses, I don't know, your perspective changes a little bit.
Because I was always so many girls are like, oh, he's so hot. I'm like, he's crazy.
That reminds me, and I'm going to talk about the show later, but the series Fallout, which is based on a video game.
Yes.
Or a game. Have you watched any of that?
No, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so Walter Goggins plays the ghoul, and so he's this character who is irradiated or whatever. Like he's
hate it when that happens.
He's blasted in a nuclear blast.
Darn it!
And then he's kind of immortal. But he has his skin. He's bald. His skin is red and inflamed. He has no nose. There's just a hole where his nose is. And the women are saying that about him.
What?
Yes.
I've seen images of him from the show. Hold.
There.
What? What's the?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. There's fan fiction about this guy.
What?
Yeah. So I don't know what that says about men or women.
I know.
Or
humanity.
Or what? Yeah.
Is he just a real smooth talker?
There's a fact. Do with it what you will. That guy inspires.
I'm gonna be on
romantic stories.
What if next week I come back and I'm like, Crystal?
I watched the show.
I can't explain it, but I get it.
I mean, he has good lines.
He's cool.
Kind of, yeah.
I feel like that.
It's kind of like, what's the Ryan Reynolds character?
Oh my gosh.
Deadpool.
Yes.
It's a little bit like that. Like underneath his mask, Deadpool is a mess. But he's cool.
Right.
He's sharp.
But
now the ghoul character is not cracking jokes like Deadpool. But I guess that's the similar kind of thing.
All right.
I don't know.
Y'all can have him.
That's what I'm saying. I'm giving them the benefit
of the doubt. He looks horrifying to me.
The nose thing is
what I was gonna say.
The real challenge.
Yeah. Challenge. Yes. Oh, yeah. How tough would it be if you fell in love with this man? Like Love is Blind situation. I've literally never seen that show, but...
Oh, I guess kissing would be easier.
That's what it is.
And maybe that's what it is.
That's what it is.
You don't
Always
have to
women are
dodge
like,
the
that's
nose.
right. That's always been a problem.
If I had a nickel for every time I said...
I wish that person didn't have a nose.
That nose just gets in the way.
Yes. How interesting, though. Well, okay.
Very unusual. But, Never Saw Me Coming is definitely kind of a fun read. And it ended, it seemed like it might continue into more. But then I read a very different, very short novel called Orbital by Samantha Harvey. I haven't read anything by her before, but I will, because it is beautifully written. It doesn't have much of a plot. So it is about these 6 astronauts and cosmonauts. There's a group of them that are on the space station. Again, it's kind of in the near future, set in the near future. And it's like a day in the life, but their day as they're orbiting is like 16 days or 16 passes around. Yeah. I don't remember exactly, but so each chapter is like another revolution of the Earth or whatever. Cool. And they get to, look down on Earth. You get all of the imagining of what would it be like to be trapped in that way, which is horrifying to me.
No. Yes, I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm saying no, don't make me do it.
Just in case they're out there trying to kidnap people to be astronauts.
Yeah, please, not me.
We're not going to do it. So it's very claustrophobic. It's very existential. It's kind of about what's the meaning of life. Yeah. But it's all it hinges on, or it's all surrounds this idea of, floating in space and looking down on the Earth. And,
cool.
Very beautifully written. And it also talks about, climate and what's going on the planet. And as they're up there, they see, it's kind of like this helpless feeling because they see this enormous typhoon that starts building in the ocean, and then they know it's going to go hit landfall.
What can you do? Yeah. Oh, wow.
And so it's very unusual, beautiful book.
Cool.
I really liked it. And so that's all for the books for today. So we'll talk about Kanopy. Kanopy, oddly enough, has a ton of A24, which is a production company, films. And they're they kind of have a tendency to be a little more avant-garde, a little more independent. But A24 has kind of a connotation for this certain kind of film. But there's a whole bunch of them on Kanopy. Yeah. And so one was Past Lives, and it was nominated for an Academy Award this year.
Cool.
What
was it for Best Picture?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
It is about this Korean couple, or their friends when they're kids. Her family, the woman Nora, her family emigrates from South Korea, and then she and her young male friend meet in New York 20 years later. Very, romantic comedy kind of, or dramedy, I would say, as they kind of talk about what could have been and what's who they are now, and that kind of thing. So cool. It was good. It wasn't my favorite, but I can see why people really enjoyed it. Then I watched. Man, I have got all of my. Okay.
You turned off the sound, watched or read the captions.
Yes. I watched You Hurt My Feelings. With Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
I haven't seen it, but yeah.
And the director is Nicole Holofcener. And it is a comedy, it's about this, that Julia Louis-Dreyfus plays a novelist, and, like, her whole life is upside down because she overhears her husband talking about how he doesn't like her book.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
But
he's a therapist, and so there's, like, lots of therapy sessions, and then there's, like, how therapists kind of need more therapy than their patients sometimes, kind of thing. And so, so it's about, like, you know, how I don't trust you anymore because
you were like, yes, babe, this is the best book you've ever written.
Yeah. And then turns out he didn't like it.
And you're talking about it behind my back. Oof. Yeah, that hurts.
Yeah. So it's all about the trust issues and, you know, how much should you take that kind of thing, you know, because, like, why would a writer care what a therapist thinks about her book?
Right.
But everybody does. People care about what their families and friends think about what they do.
Yeah.
So it's funny and a little, you know, bonkers, but good. Then I watched my least favorite A24 movie that I watched on Kanopy, which is Showing Up with Michelle Williams. And she plays a sculptor who's going to have a new show. And it is slow and boring. And Michelle Williams, it's like the whole film is a little bit of like, let's make quirky the whole thing.
No.
Yeah. So
that's tiresome.
It was tiresome. And the art in it wasn't good. So if it's, you know,
that's
about a bunch of artists.
Annoying. Yeah.
And there are long tracking shots of just people making art. And
none of it's good.
And when none of it's good and there's no point to it. It just, and I didn't like the character.
Bummer.
I mean, I wouldn't tell people not to watch it, but, or read it, or wear it, but do what
you can if you want.
Do what you want to do. But I would say that I just couldn't get into it. All right, so I should have ended the Kanopy discussion on a high note because we want people to watch Kanopy, but there's plenty more.
Yes.
Thousands and thousands more.
Amazing things to view on Kanopy with a K.
And then I watched several things that I really enjoyed, so I'm happy to talk about those.
Yeah.
First was Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Amazon Prime.
Oh my gosh, I watched that.
Yay.
I really liked it.
Okay, good. I did too. And it was not anything like the film, the original film with Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, which was terrible.
Yeah.
This is Donald Glover and Maya Erskine, and then there's all kinds of cameos, like Alexander Skarsgård, a bunch of people are cameos. And it is like a action thriller.
It's funny.
It's got
surprising.
It's got everything.
It does. They were so good together.
Yeah.
They were great.
So Maya Erskine and Donald Glover play the Mr. and Mrs. Smith characters. They don't know each other, but they're thrown together to be hit people.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
They're like not necessarily only
killing
hitmen, but they're like
carrying out these assignments, super secret,
like spies, but not for the government necessarily. Anyway, so it's good. It's mysterious.
There are other Mr. and Mrs. Smiths. And again, unexpected, and like the end was one of those endings, and I'm like, come on, Right. I mean, I was aggravated, but it was because I liked it so much. I was like, what's gonna happen next?
We need to have a whole episode just about endings because there's so many that are just like.
Were you and I talking? Yeah, you and I were talking about. I was like, can you what television series can you think of that had a great ending? It is so rare.
Did we even think of one?
I don't even know if we did.
I don't think we did. There have been some that were okay, and then there's famous endings of shows like Newhart or whatever. The Sopranos. Newhart when he like wakes up and the whole thing was a dream.
A classic.
You know, yeah. And then The Sopranos where it's just black screen. Yeah.
You can decide what's going to happen next.
Yeah. And that one, which very unusual for me, since and even at the time back when then I was like DVRing things and watching them later and binging them. But the Sopranos finale I watched live with everybody else.
Real time.
So I was one of those that was like, the cable went out. Like, you know.
Oh my God.
What happened?
Can you imagine?
At least it was just for a brief second. I was like, wait, did the channel not work? And then realized, oh, it's intended to be.
Yeah. No, there are lots. I feel like there are interesting endings like that, but we had plenty of real bad ones.
Very bad ones, and also ones that were like shows that we loved that were canceled too soon.
Yes,
like the OA.
The OA. Mm-hmm. I leave the room. Get up silently, slam the door. Yeah.
Or Lodge 49, which we talked about.
Yes.
Which they just gave it 2 seasons and then canceled it.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's tons of things like that, but
we should be running all this.
We know best.
Love yourself knows.
That's right. So let's see. So then I watched a film called Foe on Amazon Prime, and so Mr. and Mrs. Smith was also on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
But Foe is based on a novel by Ian Reid from 2018, I think, and. It is basically, there's 3 characters. Saoirse Ronan and Paul Mescal play this couple. And he's given this opportunity to, like, go to space.
Which we do not want to do.
Right. But it's, again, we're in another near future where, like, the climate has destroyed the farmland. And so there's just, like, you know...
Pretty bleak.
But it's a sci-fi psychological thriller where you will be surprised, I think. Yeah. Because of the way that it's paced and the way that it's set, I kind of pride myself on usually kind of being able to figure out the trick endings or whatever. I didn't
love that.
When I read the book. Now, obviously I knew it was going to happen in the movie because it's based on the book. But when I read the book, I was surprised.
That's great.
It's very moody, very dark and foreboding, and but it's mostly just the main couple talking to each other in their farmhouse by themselves. So yeah,
intriguing.
It's intriguing, yes. Then I watched The Walking Dead, the Ones Who Live. Mm-hmm. And that is, I was very excited to see it, but it's about Rick and Michonne, and if you're not a Walking Dead fan, then you probably don't know what I'm talking about. But they're 2 of the main characters, and they both left the original show before it was over, and so it was like, you know, after a couple seasons of them not being in the show, now they're back and everybody's very excited about it.
Because Michonne was my favorite character.
Yes, absolutely. Mine it's a tie between Michonne and Carol, but...
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, basically, it's like several years in the future from the end, or goes several years in the future from the end of the series. Mm-hmm. And it's only, I think it's 6 episodes.
Okay.
But it does... tie things up for them.
That's cool.
I'll just leave
it. Nice.
I'll leave it at that. Everybody knows that that's what's happening in the. I'm not giving anything away. I don't think.
No.
But there's a lot in between that.
Cool.
A lot happens in those 6 episodes. And then I watched The Walking Dead: Dead City. Mm-hmm. There's so many spinoffs of this. It's really ridiculous at this point. But Dead City is about Negan and Maggie, and so. Negan was like the really horrible bad guy. Oh. And then he ended up carrying on through the end of the series. And Maggie kind of left for a while in the series and comes back. But she's the one whose husband was murdered by Negan in front of her. And so then they have to work together.
To survive.
Yeah. And it's set in New York City. So it takes it to a new place. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
But neither of the spinoffs did I like as much as I liked the early episodes of The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And I do have to disclose that I was a huge Walking Dead fan.
Mm-hmm.
I came in after it had been on for a couple of seasons, binged the whole thing, and then was on board until the Negan episode when he kills the character. And that is also not a spoiler if you haven't watched the series at all, because it literally is everywhere. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, if this is where you're learning that.
Yeah, then I can't help you.
Yeah.
But he's just, it wasn't just that there was that killing. It was the way that it was done, the way that the story was told. I felt that the plot was cheap.
Yeah.
We're back at the plot again.
Yep.
It was just, they went off the deep end.
Yeah.
And so I stopped watching it. But then my nephew convinced me, because of the spinoffs, he's like, you're going to really like the spinoffs. You just want to
know what's...
Catch yourself up. And so I did.
I'm glad you did.
Because I love my nephew.
Yes.
And
Shout out David!
I'm glad I did. And there's still a couple of spinoffs with Carol coming up that I have not watched yet. But where she goes to Europe with Daryl, I think.
Oh my goodness.
Which...
This sounds insane, but
it does. It's ridiculous. But it's also fun. It's like, they've been everywhere in the United States.
Let's see what it's like. Like,
What's going on around the world?
Wish other things did that. Like, there are so many other stories and shows that I'm like, I want this world expanded.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Apparently people want it because it's happening. So, anyway, those were good. I watched also Fallout, as I mentioned before. And I knew of the game. Wasn't a player of the game, but I followed it. I knew what it was about, had seen the gameplay and stuff. And but the series is good. It is super dark. Obviously, it's basically about Fallout, about after a nuclear attack, and it starts off with the ghoul character,
the hottie.
But when he is still a human man, and he's an actor
with a nose,
and all the facial parts that you need, and
I see.
Yeah, so it starts off with him. The bomb drops. He's running away from it, and then it's 200 years later.
Not fast enough. Dang.
Yeah.
200
years later, and he's still kicking.
Yeah.
Just with minus a few essential parts.
Like noses.
Yeah. Exactly. So, but then the main character, Lucy, is played by the actress who was in... it's leaving my mind. About the girls that are in the plane crash...
not the Wilds, Yellow Jackets.
Yellow Jackets.
Yes.
So not the
I
Wilds,
almost said Yellowstone. Okay, yeah.
Well, when you get mixed up with wear and read and watch, then that's not a big deal. But so
okay.
I guess she left that show to come do
this. Cool.
And so it's funny, it's bizarre, it's
Yeah.
bonkers. The other there's like three main characters. So there's the ghoul, there's Lucy, and then there's this guy who his line delivery and his demeanor is so weird. And he kind of has like a flat affect on, he just doesn't have a lot of expression. He has kind of a small voice, and I was like, what is this? But that he grows on you, and you come to understand like why.
It just makes me I want to know what you're talking about.
Yeah. You got to see it.
Yeah,
because it was like, is he gonna have an expression ever? Is he?
Is this a party trick?
What's wrong with him? Is it the actor? Why is it? It was just there were a lot of questions.
Okay.
About the choices.
Yeah,
but it gets better. But he is a quirky dude, so
that's fact.
Yeah. Doesn't change from that. And then lastly, I watched Dispatches from Elsewhere. This was on AMC. And I missed it. I don't know. It came out in 2020.
Yeah, you told me about this.
And I think everybody missed it. But it's
I
Jason.
said we were all watching Tiger King.
That's right. And that's what we were doing.
That's why we missed it.
And we should have been watching this because this is much better. Okay. This is like magic realism, drama, comedy silliness.
I love all those things.
Yeah. So it's Jason Segel, and he developed it and produced it, I think. Mm-hmm. And Sally Field and Andre 3000.
Which I love that.
What a group, you know?
I know.
So they play characters who have, and it's based on a real thing, a real art installation, basically, that took place in California. I want to say San Francisco, but I'm not for sure.
Okay.
San somewhere.
Yes.
San somewhere in California. And it's this, the original, the art installation was about the Jejun Society, or the Institute, is what it's called. There's a documentary about it. But they made a fictionalized version of it where essentially what happens is the main characters see flyers around the city that direct them to an address, and they go and they get inducted into this kind of secret society, and they're given assignments to do, and they have to it's not like Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
That's what I was going to say.
But they're given these tasks, like they're supposed to find this missing girl. Mm-hmm. Well, half of them think that there is a missing girl, and they're really supposed to find her. And the other half are like, well, this is a game, and we're just, we're trying to win.
Yeah.
So we don't care about this fake missing
We're just trying to win.
We're just trying to win. And then there's another small faction that's trying to find out about this secret society.
Get to the,
and figure out, like, what's their ulterior motive,
yes.
who's the player.
Yes.
And so it's really good. It's, I think that the idea, the concept is amazing. I think that the original project was really cool, but then they made a really interesting...
And, just that concept with that cast, this, fever dream of a cast. Again, putting those three people together.
And there are others, too. There's that's just, the central people, but then there's a lot of other characters that are really good.
Cool.
Like Richard E. Grant, who's... Just look him up if you're not familiar with him.
I was about to say, I know that
He's
name.
the dad in Saltburn.
Oh, I haven't seen Saltburn.
Okay.
I've seen the trailer. I'd probably okay.
Anyway.
Cool.
He's hilarious as, kind of the guy in the background. And so that's quite a lot that we covered. Okay, so, I think we are going to wrap it up.
Yeah.
And we will be back soon.
Yes.
Because we've got a lot more stuff to talk about.
We'll be reading and watching and listening and plotting and scheming.
You didn't know about that part.
Surprise.
Now you do. All right, we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.